we're also talking with some fascinating guests this morning. Mark Anthony is here. He's a medium and the author of this book called Never Letting Go. And he's helping others through their grief by connecting with loved ones who've died. We'll have more with Mark Anthony and his book, Never Letting Go, in just a moment. Mark Anthony's new book, Never Letting Go, is a guide to help you through the grieving process. And he says it can inspire you with evidence of the afterlife. Author Mark Anthony is with us this morning. And in addition to being a medium, he is also a practicing lawyer. What a fascinating combination. Good morning.
Good morning, Christine.
Yeah, so first of all, for people who don't know, explain what a medium is. Some people might think psychic. There's a difference, though.
There is a difference. A psychic tunes into the energy of a person, place, or thing. A medium to the energy of a third party. So if you want to know what's going on with your love life or your career, see a psychic. If you want to communicate with spirits of loved ones, see a medium.
So tell me how you first realized that you were a medium, and do you actually communicate with people who passed on?
When I was about 4 years old, I started having friends come to visit me, and it was okay in my household because both my parents had these abilities as well. So I remember my mother saying, "Oh, looks like he's got the family gift."
Wow. So this is not just your, typical 5-year-old's imaginary friend. You actually could see. Okay, so explain to me how you experience, and what do you see or hear?
There's different ways that we perceive spirits through clairvoyance, which is seeing a spirit, clairaudience, which is hearing them, and clairsentience, which is feeling them. So I receive visual impressions, I hear messages from them, and I receive physical sensations throughout my body. For example, if a spirit communicates to me how he or she died, I'll feel maybe pressure in my chest to indicate it could be congestive heart failure or lung cancer, or a dizzy sensation on my head could be an aneurysm, or it could be brain cancer.
Wow. So there are a lot of people out there who are probably thinking, no way, that is not possible. I just don't believe it. What do you say to those people?
You can't make people believe. For those who believe, no explanation is necessary. For those who do not, perhaps no explanation is possible. But it's like believing in God. God exists whether you believe in God or not. So let's face it, every religion teaches that when we physically die, our soul moves on to another realm. So there's nothing new about this. For at least 5,000 years, I mean, the Hindus believe in an afterlife, the Buddhists believe in an afterlife, the Christians, the Muslims, the Jews, the Native Americans, the Shintos, and so on and so forth. So there are people who are sensitive to the presence of spirits.
Okay, so I admit I'm always skeptical of these kinds of things. So when I started reading your book, though, I realized that there are things you think, okay, it's not possible if you weren't actually communicating with that person. Give me some examples of times where you've communicated with somebody and how you've been able to help them.
If you go to my website, neverlettinggo.com, and there's a video series, and the first video is about this woman named Monica, and she came to me at a gallery reading where I I give a presentation, then I do readings on people in the crowd. So I don't know anything about these people. Her son had died of a drug overdose, and that information came through, and he delivered some very profound messages to her. So that was probably maybe 2 months ago.
Meaning to her through you.
Right, he came to her through me, and then I saw her last week, and she was a completely different woman. She looked 10 years younger. The stress was out of her face. I didn't even recognize her. She ran up to me. I was giving another presentation. She hugged me and said, "God bless you. Thank you for bringing me peace." And what I tell people is I'm very appreciative, but all I did was open the door. It's up to you to go through the door.
Well, the grieving process is hard for anybody. Do you find people are looking for a way to, whether it's connect or find some sense of peace when a loved one has died?
Absolutely. The objective of getting through grief is not to be all happy again. We would like that. We'd all like the magic bullet, the happy pill to take and let our pain go away. But the objective of getting through grief is accepting the reality of the death, and through that acceptance, then finding inner peace. And it is when you find peace that the grieving and the waves of grief begin to subside. and you will eventually find happiness in your life again.
Interesting. Now, you're an attorney too, a criminal
Yes.
defense attorney,
Yes.
so you deal with a lot of tragic situations.
Yes, I do.
How do you combine the two, or do you try and separate them?
Both careers deal with evidence. As an attorney, it is my job to present evidence to a judge or to a jury, and then it's up to that person or that group of people to decide what to do with it. As a medium, I present evidence which is conveyed to me from a spirit to the client, and then it's up to the client what to do with that. So actually, I find both careers to be in harmony from an evidential standpoint.
Now, do you ever feel like, okay, I've heard this thing from the spirit, I want to bring it into the courtroom, but maybe it's not really the appropriate thing to do? I mean, can you ever say, I spoke to the victim or something?
Actually, I talk quite a bit about that in Never Letting Go, but I have to tell you, there's this one judge that I go in front of, and she's from the West Indies, and she's just awesome, but every time I go in her courtroom, I see her maternal grandmother standing behind her trying to get my attention, and I've yet to go, Your Honor, may I approach the bench? By the way.
I see your grandmother.
I see your grandmother, and she wants you to know this. So in that particular context, I feel it's inappropriate.
Right.
But in my practice, yes, I use my ability all the time. We're all given different gifts, and this is one of the gifts that I've been given, so I try to use it. It's a service gift to be used in the service of other people to help them cope with grief. It is my theory that grief leads to crime, which then leads to grief. A lot of my clients, drug addicts and alcoholics. Now, we've never met a happy drug addict or alcoholic.
That's true.
And what I've found is about 80% or more of the time, in that person's past, there's a death that's unresolved, that hasn't been dealt with, which is why they drink, act out, engage in impulsive behaviors, and rage. So then they commit crimes and possibly even kill other people. So then the crime leads to grief, which then leads to yet another crime and more grief.
Interesting. And you said that your parents both experienced this as well. When you were little, did they tell you about it? Did you know early on that this is something that they did?
It was really cool. My mom especially, for her to see spirits was almost as common as seeing the neighbors. And so I'd come home from school and Mom would be like, I saw a spirit today. And I'm like, cool, do we have any peanut butter? Yeah, honey, it's over there. And that's just kind of how it was. And it was really fascinating and a privilege to be her son. My father also had this ability, but he kind of liked to keep it closer to himself.
So did you tell your friends, or what was that like growing up?
It was difficult having psychic parents because you could never really get away with things. You know, teenagers, not that teenagers are inherently bad, but they're always up to something.
Right.
And I'd come home and they'd be like, aha! And they always seem to know. Now, I think that a lot of parents have that sixth sense about what their kids are doing.
Yes.
But I learned pretty early on not to discuss this outside of the house. My parents said people won't understand. As I got older and I had the maturity to deal with it, then I did discuss it. But let's face it, it's hard enough being a kid, let alone a teenager, without this being brought to the forefront.
So if people are listening and they say, I've been wanting, you know, I have some unresolved feelings and they want to talk to you, how do you do consultations?
Through my website, neverlettinggo.com, and you can also find out about how to obtain my book, which is on sale. In fact, I'll be at Barnes & Noble here tonight.
Yes, and I'm going to give those details in just a minute. And you can do readings over the phone?
I do readings over the phone because we're dealing with frequency, and spirits are energy. I mean, they're people, they're consciousness, they are our loved ones. They're just without a body, and they're able to move at speeds we can't even comprehend. And so we can communicate with spirits over the phone with people. It is. It's quite amazing.
Thank you, Mark, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so you can check out Mark Anthony's new book called Never Letting Go. He will be at the Barnes & Noble at South Hills Village Mall tonight at 6 o'clock for a book signing. And for more information about Mark or his book, you can go to the link on our webpage, kdka.com/PTL.